People often ask me, what are some examples of crucial conversations? Talking to a loved one about an addiction or an eating disorder, breaking up with someone, coming out to a parent or loved one, sharing bad news, giving a crummy performance review. These are just a few examples of crucial conversations that come up in the personal and professional realm. So, be honest here, does any of this resonate with you? In this video, I'm going to share 3 common types of crucial conversations and then 4 pieces of advice to increase the likelihood that you can have these conversations and have them in a way that lands successfully. If you stay to the end, I'll share with you a piece of advice that sounds trite, but really is true when it comes to crucial conversations. Okay, so there are 3 types of conversations that many of us experience as crucial. That is important to have, but tempting to avoid. The first of these is what we call feedback conversations. So broadly speaking, a feedback conversation is any conversation where we may be sharing some kind of information or feedback with another person. Perhaps most typically we think of the conversation at work, which is maybe perhaps part of a performance review, where a supervisor might be sharing the ways in which an employee is not living up to expectations. But feedback conversations, they occur just as equally, maybe more so, outside of work. If I'm worried that a good friend or a family member may be developing an unhealthy addiction to alcohol or drugs or YouTube, that's a feedback conversation. It's also a feedback conversation when I sit down maybe with an elderly relative to talk to them about my concerns with their continuing to drive or continuing to live alone. In each of these situations, I have some information that I want to convey to someone that is about them and I think will be hard for them to hear or to take in. Okay, so the second category is sharing news with someone that might disappoint them in some way. This second category of crucial conversation are ones in which we might be sharing news with someone that we worry will sadden them or disappoint them or let them down. So what's different here, right, is I'm not talking about something they're doing or failing to do. This time, I'm giving them information either about myself or about a situation that I'm afraid is going to upset them or let them down or make them angry or in some way get a negative reaction. And in a situation like this, I'm tempted to avoid this conversation rather than cause the disappointment or the pain or the hurt, or rather than unleash negative emotions that I just rather avoid. So what are some examples of this? Well, it might be letting your parents know that you have accepted the offer admissions into the archaeology master's program rather than going to law school after all. I got to tell you, I have had to coach many people through situations like this, and it's not pretty. Or maybe it's resigning from a job and letting your supervisor, who maybe you really admire and respect, know the bad news. Or maybe you're coming out to your best friend who you're pretty sure is going to take this badly and pull away from the relationship. In each of these cases, you've made a decision about something important to you, and you need to let that other person you care about know. And conversations like this can feel very fraught because you don't know how they're going to react and what the relationship will look like going forward. This relates to a third category of crucial conversation, which is renegotiating the terms of a relationship that you may have with them. So this final category of crucial conversation is ones where parties might need to renegotiate the understanding, status, or terms of the relationship. Situations like these are typically very fraught and complicated. A very common one is a conversation that might end a romantic relationship where at least one person would invite a friendship instead. Sometimes those transitions are somewhat different. So for example, a conversation between an adult child and their parent over transitioning from a relationship that really looks like parent-child to a relationship that looks like adult child to adult parent. These conversations can be very hard, because they require change, and change sometimes is scary or unwelcome for one or both parties. So what is common across all of these crucial conversations is that emotions on all sides can be very raw. Similarly, issues of identity, the story we tell about who we are in the world, might also be threatened. And of course, relationships might be at stake. So let me offer 4 pieces of advice that might help make these go better. First, before getting started, consider the risks of having the conversation versus the risks of avoiding it. Lots of times, what holds us back from engaging a crucial conversation is that we are focused on all the risks. We might hurt them. Things could get worse. Nothing will change. I'll get hurt. They'll get hurt. I'll get even more frustrated. It will escalate. Of course, all these risks are definitely there. But if you take account of the cost of avoiding, you'll also see that they're pretty high as well. For example, things will get worse. Nothing will change. The relationship will worsen. I'll get more frustrated. It will escalate. Assessing both the risks of having and the cost of avoiding can often strengthen our resolve to engage that conversation because we realize that avoiding may be just as bad as having the conversation itself. Okay, before we move to the second point, remember there is a key piece of advice that I'm holding to the end, something that will encourage you no matter how discouraged you might be feeling right now. So keep watching. Now to the second piece of advice, which is preparing using a role reversal. So I think it goes without saying that preparation is crucial for any conversation, particularly one that's going to be difficult and fraught. When you're preparing, something you might consider is an exercise that I call the role reversal. So what this involves is actually doing a dry run. Yep, a rehearsal of the conversation with a trusted friend or perhaps a coach. But here's the rub here, because first thing you're going to do is spend time with your friend or your coach, teaching them how you typically act in the conversation. And then you are going to make them you, and you are going to enroll as the person that you're going to have the conversation with. This may sound really strange to you, but let me just tell you, if your friend does a good job of playing you, this is going to be an eye-opening experience from a preparation perspective. Having the experience of hearing your own words used against you usually helps you understand what's landing and what isn't. It usually gives you a new insight into the situation. So let me share with you a real-life story of just how powerful role reversal can be. Several years ago, I was on a teaching team teaching a course for executives at Harvard Law School. And the instructor, Professor Roger Fisher, had used this role reversal exercise on Wednesday afternoon. So this is a 5-day class. It meant from Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. At the end of the exercise, a participant came up to Roger and said, "Oh, Professor Fisher, I'm so sorry I'm not going to be here tomorrow and Friday." Professor Fisher was pretty surprised because people pay a lot of money to actually come to this course, and you don't get a certificate of completion if you don't stay till the end. And so Roger said, "Gosh, what's happened? Are you okay?" And the person responded and said, "I'm actually really not okay. I haven't spoken to my son for 3 years, and I just did this exercise using my son. And sitting in that chair and hearing the words that I used on him, used on me, made me realize that I need to get on a plane tonight and go to London and apologize." And that person was not in the class on Thursday and Friday. But I'd venture to say he definitely got his money worth in the course. So taking on this role reversal exercise might not have that level of transformation for you, but it probably will open up some really helpful insights. Okay. Third important tip, choose the right time and place and signal your purpose. Because conversations about feedback or delivering bad news or renegotiating the terms of a relationship are so hard, it's easy for us to engage in these conversations at a moment that works for us, but might take the other side off guard. If this conversation is crucial and important, it's worth doing well and at the right time. Fourth, be transparent about your ambivalence and make saying the wrong thing an expectation of the conversation. So when you are opening up this conversation, consider opening by sharing your own ambivalence about the conversation. The same kind of ambivalence we talked about earlier when we were considering the risks and the costs. So you might imagine saying something like this. As I thought about this conversation, there are a lot of reasons why I wanted to avoid it. I'm really afraid of hurting you or disappointing you or getting hurt. At the same time, I realize there's a lot of reasons why it's important for me to do anyway. And because I'm hoping we can find a way to change and grow, and because I don't want to disappoint you, it's important for me that we have this conversation. Expressing this kind of ambivalence is typically powerful because it can actually put the other person a bit at ease. Chances are they're actually feeling the same way. The other thing I want to do there is really suggest to the other side that it's likely that both of us may say some things that come out the wrong way in this conversation. And if we could have as an expectation that we will do that, but still assume the best intentions, it gives each of you some space to make some mistakes in the conversation. So I know this is a lot to take in. Instead of reviewing the points, let me end with the piece of hopeful advice I promised you earlier. And that's this. Crucial conversations will never be easy, but they do get better, meaning the more you commit to taking on these conversations with integrity, with grit, determination, and honesty, the better you will become at them and the easier they will be. So if you want to continue learning more about these crucial conversations, watch the next video on what does it take to become a mediator. And of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I'm Bob Bordone, and thanks for watching. Are you anyone left? Are there any viewers still watching?